No, I think a lot of things are coming along. Nothing is completely, you guys talked to quarterbacks yesterday, so everybody always asking those kinds of questions. Nothing's completely set in stone. I don't think in year one you're ever going to have that. I think in the spring, but I think that some guys are really showing some competition, and creating some opportunities for themselves in all different spots. Um, but I think more than anything, I think our guys are starting to figure out how we do things, meaning at the pace at which we do them, not just the tempo of playing the game, but I mean the pace at which we do everything. And so now we just got to take some other steps and the discipline besides the things in all areas. We got too many guys maybe that didn't make practice today, or too many guys are dinged up, and you got to find ways to be able to get out here and go and practice night. Everybody's going to be a little bit hurt. So I think those are some areas where we know we got to continue to grow. You can't stuff all the pressure on just these ones and two guys playing. We can't go at the pace we want to go if we don't have enough guys out here. So I think that's where we got to this last third of spring ball. We've got to do a really good job of guys taking care of themselves and making sure they can get out there and practice so we can get better at what we need to do.
You mentioned that you've had some guys out at tight end because of injuries, come off injuries. But Q, what have you gotten from him?
Yeah.
It looks like he's got more opportunities to show.
He's done a great job. I mean, I think he gives the balance to ability to play a little bit out in space, but also the balance to be inside and be a pretty physical blocker. Again, all these guys are new to me, so anything that happened in the past, I have no idea about. So in some ways, for guys that maybe didn't play before or were young and whatever it was, they get an opportunity to come out here with all of us and start anew. And he's done nothing but do an incredible job in the winter, through all the workout stuff, and then obviously coming out here every practice so far. He's answered the bell. He plays tough, and shoot, I think he's going to have a heck of a year.
Do you think in the last few practices you've seen the defense maybe pick things up and read things with this offense a little bit better? Is that maybe it's a product you've seen a lot? Or
yeah, but I mean, defensively, we don't do a whole lot of like scheming and talking about. I mean, I think for us, as much as anything defensive, I'd be disappointed if we were talking too much about the offense as opposed to we got so many things that we need to do and focus on ourselves. Now, by nature, they start to understand things, they start to recognize things. That's where you see the intelligence of the football players that we got. But defensively, as me and I always kind of stress to good, like we don't overly worry about what we're playing against. I know you have to have some success to gain confidence and things like that, but I believe what it is that we do will gives you the opportunity to do that. But I just don't think that we need to, overly worry about how we go about. Hey, they're doing this, and we need to do this, as opposed to we got to learn how we're going to do things. We got to learn the way we're going to do things. What's on the other side, it's not as big of a deal.
Look, you had a little after the whistle, a couple of those today. Your view on that and what you like or don't like about it?
We got to play the game with emotion, but you got to learn to be able to control emotion.
Yeah.
Some of us were culprits of it when we played as well. But I think more than anything, you love the competitive spirit, but we got to be able to find a way that we can do this and compete together and not lose our minds and go over that edge. And I don't know what it's been like in the past. I don't know what it's but I know this: we've got to compete. We've got to be at that edge where we're always at each other. When we're in between those lines, and then find the way to not go overboard. But it's going to happen. I'm not saying you condone it. I think the greatest thing that happened because of it, you can teach from it, and then you also learn how to handle those situations with your own teammates. And if you don't have those other guys walking in there and escalating the situation, then we can usually take care of it pretty good. And it's kind of what you want to be able to see.
If I can ask a bigger picture question, what were the most significant challenges, changes you wanted to make when you got here, and how have you seen people embrace whatever those changes?
I think it started in the off season. Just I don't, like I said, how things were done in the past, I don't know, but just the intensity, the speed, the tempo at which we want to, whether it's working out, whether it's taking the field, whether it's actually the way you practice, the way you go from drill to drill. I just think that they're learning us. We're going to coach them really hard, and we want them to be able to understand that and embrace that. And sometimes that's hard, when you're new, and not because it's different, but because maybe you don't know the guys as much. They don't know me as much. That trust factor is not as high. And so, we've got to be able to build that really quick. And I think we've done a great job. They've done a great job through all of winter, embracing all those different things that we may have asked them to do, and the tempo and the pace at which we asked them to do it, and then the different things out here. And this is where you start to get some adversity. You get 9, you get 10, you get 11. Everybody's on edge. Everybody's got a little something. Everybody's dinged up. And now they're kind of curious as to why coach is pushing. What do you mean? He's on me because I can't go as well today. Like, No, I mean, it's going to be like that on some Saturday morning here in September or October, and you got to be at your best. And if you're going to train yourself to do that, then you got to be able to do it in these situations. So they've done a phenomenal job at embracing all of us. I think we'll find out a lot more here in the next week and a half, just because this is the time when I just told them that we're always pushing toughness, we're always pushing, playing the game the way we play it. But now you're figuring out the discipline side of things that becomes a little bit harder as you get further along. You're a little bit more mentally tired.
One of the guys you brought in to help the defense was Varner. Obviously, you're familiar with him. We haven't seen him because he's been injured. When he's healthy and back up and running, how do you think he can help affect the defense?
I think there's a few guys in there that's kind of hard on the D line right now. That that Townsend's not in there, Jarvis isn't in there, and Varner's not in there. And all three of those guys are the same to me because all I've seen is a little bit of film that I've seen on him. Maybe Varner just because played against him and knew him a little bit closer. I think all three of them are a little bit different. But I see him being a guy that can help us with a little bit more explosion, maybe a little bit more pop, a little bit more quickness. He's different probably than some of the other guys that we've got and that we'll play with. But that variety gives us a chance to do some other things. But it's difficult. It's hard on him too, man. I mean, there's nothing harder than your first year in a program and not being able to kind of prove yourself in what you do. And I think the guys have embraced him and he's done a great job. But it's not been easy.
When Travion was healthy, you guys had a free safety look off. What do you like about that? Is that just a matter of having?
It has no. Positions are positions. Like we got to find. When he was out there, we found a way to put the best 11 on the field. And when he's not out there, we're going to find a way to put the best 11 on the field. Whether that's 3 safeties, 4 safeties, no safety. I mean, you saw Chaney playing some like what we got to be able to do is find a way to get the best 11 guys on the field. Obviously, each guy can do things a little bit different, but that's where it becomes a little bit more difficult. And we're not just a square peg. We're not just hey, this is who we are. This is what we're going to do. No, we're going to do what our guys can do well, and we're still evolving in a lot of those things. And it makes it more difficult when you got guys that are in and guys that are out. But we'll eventually have to always deal with injuries. I think in year one and spring one, that's what makes it a little bit more difficult.
When you brought in the amount of receivers that you did, obviously you wanted to see this type of rotation, this type of play from those guys. But you mentioned the guys that have been able to come out here, the receivers haven't had too many injuries. But then how would you say that they've produced and continued to do it throughout practices?
Again, it's hard to tell who because they do roll a lot. And I think that's by nature right now. And I think Coach Brown's done a phenomenal job. And I haven't seen any of those guys that maybe had to run with the threes and they look like they're pouting. And so some way, somehow inside that room, there's a really good culture of things. And I know they all want the ball, right? But I've seen them be able to roll through there, which has kept them healthy, which has kept them on the field, which has given us the ability to, I think, get better for them and for the quarterbacks and timings and things like that. So I couldn't stand here today and tell you who rank them. But I've been really impressed with how they've handled all the things that they've done. And all the new things in particular to everybody. It's new to everyone. But I think it gives us a chance because it's a well-rounded group that is competitive. And when they're all able to go, which they have been able to do, it's made our practice that much better.
Luke, Ricardo Hallman really stacked some good practice together this spring. What stood out to you about him?
Consistency. I think that if you ask me, in particular, one guy that's been as consistent as anybody, I'd say Ricardo. Each and every day, we try to strive to not be that occasionally great, but the consistently good, which then turns you into consistently really good, which in the long run makes you great. If I were to pick one, I'd say Ricardo every single day has been consistently good, and you've seen him grow and get better.
Not just Lewis is a guy whose speed can bring some different dimensions to this offense. What have you seen from him in terms of just picking up some of the different roles you've asked him to take on?
I think you're right. I think that you do see that's a guy that's got some vertical speed for us and down the field, and he's done a great job at catching contested balls. I think I've been as impressed with that as anything. Staying on your feet after some of those things, I think is the next step to it. But I think that's not just an athletic thing; that's just a confidence thing. And I think that the more and more that he does, and we do with him through the spring and then into fall, I think he'll gain more and more of that confidence to stay on his feet, to turn those really good plays into great plays. But more than anything, he's been consistent and he's made contested catches, which I think is a big deal.
With kind of going with the wide receivers, seeing the call it production in terms of the slot with you've seen Will Pauling, you've seen Skylar Bell, with the ones and the twos. You also see Marcus Allen as well working in. Are you happy with what you're seeing so far from that position?
Yeah, because in a lot of the things we even do defensively, that's a position that we challenge a lot. You know, with some of the ways we play, and not try to let them have much space in that area where some teams are different. That's sometimes the area where there's a lot more space to be created. So we've challenged, I think, that spot, and they've still been productive. They've found ways to, get the ball in their hand, found ways to get and create space, and they've been pretty consistent as well. And obviously, in the system, they'll do some things to, to do more than just put them out there in a slot and let somebody press them up or something. To move them around, and whether it's out of the backfield, his motions. So I think by nature, it's given us some opportunities to create some of that. But I think those guys are going to be a big part of the offense.
How many of the receivers and quarterbacks are new to this program? How have you seen them build chemistry together?
Well, it's consistency. It's guys, and that's where I think that we've grown more at that position, I think, than any, because as you see, those are the guys that have made every practice. I mean, maybe a ding here and there, but for the most part, the core of that receiver room has been out here every single day. And so they've had the opportunity, the amount of throws and the amount of, even the off season, some of the stuff in the winter that we were allowing them to do. That's given them the opportunity. I think it obviously becomes different when you start putting live bodies, we start putting bodies on bodies, and contested things like that. But I think in general, they've got a little bit further along than I would probably have thought they might be, and it has a lot to do with the consistency. It has a lot to do with their ability to be out here every single day. Good.